happened to be, sadly, the first production up that that was Disney that wanted to give, and I personally wanted to. I talked to John about it because I didn't want to steal any thunder for Pixar's dedication, because that's really the real family member for Steve. But it felt right, just because I didn't want too much time to pass without giving him some sort of permanent acknowledgement. I talked to his wife. It was kind of eerie, because on the set, I would get asked all the time from all these people what Pixar was like, and it was fascinating to talk to all these movie people that knew all the films, but like some of them didn't even know Pixar was in San Francisco. It was funny. Like, they knew of us and they knew of these movies and they knew there was something different, but they didn't get it, and to the point they didn't even know where we were and stuff. And it would be such a long explanation to them about trying to tell them why it ran differently and why the movies came out the way they did, that I ended up just simplifying my answer down to Steve. Steve's why, And I did really realize how much, because I was now living it. I was now pregnant with the dysfunction of Hollywood to make this movie and how this all works, the good and the bad. And it was amazing to see how much he had firewalled us from. Like, we knew he had, but like, he had truly firewalled us and protected us from all the bad influences out of the outside world. And we had just been raised in this little Eden up in San Francisco and had no clue how bad it could be. And so I really have to give so much more credit to him than I ever was, even though I always was, of how much he was a major factor for Pixar.
Can you talk a little about that, sort of, taking that Pixar process and trying to place it on Hollywood?
I didn't get to, you didn't, you couldn't.
Okay.
I mean, I could apply all my planning and all my smart thinking ahead of time, but once you're on that train that has had 100 years of how to make a live action movie, you just got to ride it. Yeah. The most I could do was, I could have influence on was my work ethic and how I treat others. Which is, again, a very Pixar thing. It's a very egalitarian atmosphere, yet there's respect for where the final call is going to come from. And there's an acknowledgement that you're only as good as the individuals that you have on it. It's not like, you don't treat people like they're replaceable. And so I at least could apply that when I was during the whole shoot, and that seemed to have a good effect. I was also very strict about casting, whether it was for crew or for actors. I pretty much just said no assholes. And I don't care how good they are. I don't care what their resume is. We'll find somebody else. There'll be somebody else that'll fill it. And I think that, again, having worked for 20 years where I don't have to put up with that, it's nothing but good apples, then I don't see any need for any excuse. There was no excuse that made me convinced it was worth putting up with a jerk. I was just like, no, we'll make it work without him. And so that was probably the most practical influence I had on the set during the shoot. And then afterwards, we had to make all the animated. We basically had to make an animated movie, but I couldn't make it with Pixar. I was making it with outside houses. I was able to give influence again on that. It wasn't so much about the style of how their companies were run. It was just more I think they just loved having a director that knew how to do their job. That just was just as excited, if not more excited, to talk to their animators than I was to Taylor on the set.
Did you ever pitch John Carter at Pixar for an animated version?
I don't know if I should say this. I actually remember saying in the early 90s, when we were I think it might have been after Toy Story was done. There was some period where we didn't know we would get to a studio stage. We were just like, hey, we're lucky enough to make one other picture, but you couldn't help but go pie in the sky, like, what if this happens, what if that happens? And I remember saying to Ed Catmull, like, what if we ever got to a place where we could actually do hybrid movies? And then I remember showing him Princess of Mars and saying, this would be a perfect thing. And again, believe it or not, I wasn't thinking I would do it. I was just saying, like, this is a perfect example of a kind of story that would be that kind of beast. And that's the most that ever came out of it. But that's the most. So it was never pitched to Pixar other than as an example of a hybrid movie, I guess.
Did you and Brad Bird ever share any notes as far as both moving on to live action?
Not ahead of time. No. I mean, he was going into it at the same time I was, just coincidentally. But But he ended up in development hell longer than he wanted to be. It frustrated the heck out of him, poor guy. And because he's proven it. He that was the track he wanted to go down a long time ago, and he finally got to get on it. And but we finally got to get caught up afterwards and just compare notes, and it was fascinating. The biggest thing we were probably laughing at was like, you realize that the live action shooting machine is actually structured to work even if the director sucks. And which was a big statement about they have to, because they probably get more people that don't fill the bill than do. And they didn't really know how to deal with people like Brad and I who knew what we wanted and knew and could answer any question that they had, or even give them information that they weren't asking for yet. Because at Pixar, it's the opposite. I realized, like, if you don't know what you want, that machinery doesn't move at all. And we have to sing for our supper for everything, for every pixel that's on that screen. We have to have an answer and a justification for, or at least know how to keep the machine moving till we find that out. And whereas I would sometimes do these dysfunctions, not much, but there would be days where I'm tired and they'd start setting up another shot and I'd go, nobody's asked me what I want to do. That's fascinating. And I'd sit back and I'd cross my arms and I'd just sort of wait and see, like, how far are they going to do this before somebody asks me what I want to do? And you'd just be shocked, like, they're going to shoot this. Oh my God. They're going to shoot this thing. It was fascinating. Nobody meant anything by it. They were driven by keep to the schedule, keep it moving. Is the director a hindrance or a help? And either one way we pull it. So it's kind of a sad statement.